looks like the business that you run has recently got an award from an event. So, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, so
Yeah.
my company is called Global Nomad Pass,
Okay.
and it's a membership that rewards digital nomads for supporting local businesses all around the world. So we partner with cafes, restaurants, co-working spaces, co-livings, fitness studios, barbershops, salons, spas, and we negotiate exclusive discounts with the business owners. And so we sell a membership, which takes the form of like a wallet pass, just like a boarding pass that goes into your
Hmm.
Google or Apple wallet on your phone. And then whenever you go to any of these establishments, you just show your phone, you show the membership pass on your phone, and right away they take off anywhere from 10 to 50% right off your bill. So great way for nomads to save money around the world. Great way to support local businesses as well. And these are hidden gems, right? You're not finding these places on like the TripAdvisor rankings. These are where locals go. So a good way for you to go and discover some really cool hidden gems. And the businesses love it because we're bringing them customers that otherwise would have probably never known about them too. So it's a nice win-win there. And yeah, the award you mentioned, we were named as the most innovative nomad product of 2024 by the
Wow.
Nomad World Awards actually last month in Portugal. So yeah, really great recognition for the work that we're doing.
Congratulations. That sounds
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank
And I've seen the site and definitely going to have to download the app. And on my next trip, I saw Bali is on there.
you. It is.
I'll be heading to Bali for 6 months.
Hey, nice.
So I'm excited and definitely going to have to check it out and see some of the spots on there that you guys have.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that it's local businesses that you guys work with
Mhm.
and that they're hidden gems. So, like, how do you find these places and get the owners to sign up with you guys?
Yes, what we do is we hire local teams.
Okay.
As much as like a place like Bali, I love it. I've been there many times, but I can't pretend that I know where the local hidden gems in Bali or of all the destinations around the world are, right? It really comes down to us having local people on the ground. So we hire local teams. They know their city best, and they're the ones who we give them the criteria. We train them very, very rigorously. We take quality control very seriously because these have to be high quality establishments that we're recommending to our base of users. But with all this criteria in mind, they're the ones who are actually going and identifying the businesses and curating this list of partners. So it's a lot of places that they themselves would go because they're locals and they know where the local hangout spots
Mm,
are. And they know the best restaurants and cafes, etc. And then they're the ones also going and discussing with the business owners, usually in local language, and building that in-person relationship and telling them just about all the benefits of joining Global Nomad Pass. It is a selective process, so not every business that wants to be part of our network can be, right?
okay.
We like to think of it kind of like the Michelin star system, where you have to go and be awarded the status of being a best hidden gem by Global Nomad Pass. And then we negotiate the discount with the owner. We've got a contractual agreement in place with the business establishment as well. A lot of times what you'll see is they display on their window a purple badge that says that they've been selected as a Global Nomad Pass Best Hidden Gem, kind of like the TripAdvisor Green Certificate of Excellence, similar. And every year they've got to re-earn that status again, just like a Michelin star, right? So we take quality control very seriously and make sure that anytime any of our users is going there, they're going to have a good experience.
I love it. So you mentioned that you work with the locals to find the best places, and in my experience as a traveler, anytime you ask the locals where a great restaurant is, or like what's the most popular restaurant, oftentimes they'll tell you where they think you should go as a tourist, where all the tourists go.
Yeah.
So in the past, I realized that you really need to change up that question, and you say, "Hey, where is your favorite spot? Where is your favorite bar, restaurant, club, beach, hangout?" And then they change the gears change, and you usually get a different recommendation. You're not end up at the place where all the tourists are. So I really like that you guys have done that. It makes a lot of sense that getting those lists from the locals is really the way to go.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point as well because a lot of the questions that you're mentioning, right, in terms of where the best restaurant is, you're putting the local in a position where they're playing tour guide, right? And when you're
Mm,
playing tour guide, you're usually giving recommendations that you think your audience is going to want. And in this case, that is still the same motivation that they're giving recommendations that the audience is want, but the audience is different. That's the different piece here is that
mm,
our audience is not tourists. This is, I mean, it's called Global Nomad Pass for a reason. It's specifically designed for digital nomads. The
Okay.
motivation for a digital nomad to travel is very different. We're not traveling and, going and seeing all the historical landmarks. We're not going to the Madame Tussauds Wax Museum and all of these places. When we're traveling, we're actually living there, right? We're living there for periods of time. So we don't want to go where the tourists go because we're not tourists, right? I mentioned we have co-working spaces, fitness studios. I mean, which tourists are looking at fitness studios when they're traveling abroad? Probably not too many, right?
Mm,
Who's looking at nail salons and barbershops in tourist destinations? Probably not too many. But if you're going to
mhm.
be there for a month, yeah, you probably need a haircut at some point. You probably do want to go to where the locals would suggest the best barbershop is. So there's a very different audience profile, which is why that local insight is super helpful, but it's also super relatable to them because they're also living there. So they're telling you, hey, like this is my barber. This is where I go. You should totally go and like ask for this person and get an amazing haircut. And by the way, with Global Nomad Pass, you get 25% off your haircut.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. So take me back to years back before you were a digital nomad. Were you working a 9 to 5? Were you running a business? What were you doing?
Yeah, I spent over a decade in corporate life. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm Canadian. I grew up in Toronto. I went to business school in Canada as well, and then pretty much built my career in the US. So I lived in Boston for about 6 years, and I was working for Procter and Gamble, specifically on the Gillette brand. So I was in consumer packaged goods. I was in brand management, and eventually moved into global strategy roles where I was living in Boston, but I was leading global strategy for Gillette. So it's traveling to Brazil, China, India, Japan, Nigeria, just building this global behemoth of a brand overseas. And I loved it. I loved the fact that I was dealing with people from different cultures and really building a business internationally. And it kind of proved to myself that not only do I love the international aspect of my work, my life, but it forced me to use different languages. It forced me to connect to people from different cultures. And I love that feeling. And I always told myself that I wanted to recreate that in various other chapters of my life later on. Like this was a great opportunity for me to hone my skills, but I was like, I can do this in various capacities in the future. I just have to find the right opportunity. So I think that was like the right time to at least start planting the seed of for building an international career. And I did that for a number of years and then moved to Silicon Valley. My wife and I, we lived there for a number of years as well, still working in corporate for, different companies over there. And then what was interesting is I started getting much more exposure to the startup ecosystem. So just by virtue of living in Silicon Valley, everyone and their mother has a side hustle. You go into every coffee shop, everyone's talking about the latest investment round. I mean, you just become so consumed by this ecosystem that you almost don't have a choice to be part of it, right? It's just pick your role, but you're going to be part of it in some way. And at the time I was working in corporate, so I didn't really have much exposure to it, but I always had an entrepreneurial desire. I had tinkered with a few different things on the side beforehand. And so slowly over the number of years that I lived in Silicon Valley, I became connected to the right people, became familiar with angel investing, started getting a little bit more involved in startup operations, and then joined a startup, and then eventually became a co-founder of a startup as well. So that was very much my journey. But during that time, we were living in the Bay Area, right? We had an apartment in San Francisco. We were living there, and this was all kind of just what we expected life and its trajectory to be up until the pandemic, and then many other people, including us, kind of reevaluated some life choices as soon as the pandemic hit.
Okay. So at what point did you make the transition from living in the Bay Area, living a typical American or lifestyle to traveling?
So, what's interesting about my relationship with travel is that I feel like I was actually born into it. So,
Okay.
like I said, I grew up in Toronto, but
Yeah.
my mom used to work for Lufthansa, the German airline. And so, uh, as a family, we were very fortunate to have travel benefits. So we had, super cheap airline tickets. And so as a family, we used to travel all around the world all the time. Like I'd miss school left, right, and center because we were going to Switzerland, we were going to Kenya, we were going to Brazil. So I was very fortunate to be exposed to travel from my family. And because of that, growing up, particularly in a multicultural city like Toronto, I had exposure to people from different cultures and I spoke different languages. I was always very interested in the world. So that part of my brain was always very, very exposed to travel and this whole international life aspect. And then, of course, I take a job at Procter and Gamble, specifically in global strategy, where I'm now working, and so travel becomes my work, and everything was kind of centered around that. So then, even when I was living in the Bay Area and working a job that was physically based in San Francisco, my wife and I would travel as vacations, right? So we were always very, very well traveled. I speak 5 languages. I've been to over 70 countries around the world.
Wow.
All of this has just been part of my own interest and just my own passion for the world. And then it's really when the pandemic came around that we started just reevaluating all of our choices and said, well, why are we paying San Francisco rent prices when we don't actually have to go into the office anymore? Why are we paying California taxes when, again, like, do we really need to be in California? San Francisco also changed a lot. There's a lot of social issues, right? Whether it's homelessness and drugs and just in general, it became a less desirable place to live. And many people started moving away. And it's really during that time where you start to just ask yourself, like, what's keeping me here? For a long time, you had an answer to that question, which is, well, my job is keeping me here. My team is keeping me here. I have a physical reason to be here. But as soon as that goes away, do we really need to be here? Or can we continue to work our jobs remotely? We're already working from home. Well, why does home have to be in San Francisco? Why can't home be, in Thailand or in Turkey or wherever it was? And so, again, like many other people, it's really the pandemic that allowed us to become truly remote and to work from abroad. And then because I think we were already so passionate about travel and already had so much exposure to travel, it was a no-brainer decision for us. I mean, we were just itching to kind of live this lifestyle, but it's almost like we were born for it because we were very, very exposed to travel in various capacities our whole lives. Both my wife and I are on the same page about that.
Any experiences as a child or trips that really stick out in your mind that were a game changer for you?
I've definitely been to some exotic places. So
Okay.
I've been to Kenya and Tanzania and done a lot of really cool safaris and kind of been up close with cheetahs and elephants and lions and stuff in the safaris, which is always a really cool experience. I traveled probably to the most exotic place I've ever been to, which is Tajikistan. So that was really interesting because it's definitely not a tourism hotspot in any shape or form. Language barriers. Also, the weather is really, really tough during the winter, and I happened to go during February, so it was bitterly cold. There's no insulation. There's no heating in the housing. I'm Canadian, so like I know winter and like I was freezing,
Yeah.
but it's super cool because it's so untouched by tourists. So you really get like an authentic view of how life is. It was probably one of the most eye opening experiences of my life. Just kind of going through. We went trekking in the mountains there and stunning scenery, really really nice. The food is amazing, so really enjoyed that experience as well. I've been to Fiji, which just exactly what you see on the Fiji water bottle, right? Like beautiful beaches and kind of untouched natural, like just tropical landscapes, which is really nice. So yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate that I've had the chance to travel a lot in my life. And again, like before becoming a full time digital nomad, these are the experiences that kind of already taught me that I knew what I wanted in my life. I just wanted more of those, but it's hard because you've got to figure out a way to move all the pieces in your life in a way that configures correctly to this. Like, can you work from abroad? Can you earn an income from abroad? Can you actually sustain your life abroad, not just financially, but emotionally, logistically, operationally? There's so many other things to think about. And so I think we had a head start because we already knew we liked traveling and we wanted more of
Mhm.
it. There's some people who don't know that they like that actually. And so they're really coming into this for the first time, not having spent an extended period of time traveling. We weren't in that camp. We already knew we liked traveling. And so we were all for kind of leaning into that in a greater capacity to figure out how we can make this work for us.
Was it Gillette when you started to travel and work remotely?
It wasn't actually. So at that
Okay.
time, I was a co-founder of a startup. I had my whole team for the most part was based in the Bay Area. And so we had a physical office, we were meeting in person every day, but then as soon as the pandemic hit, everyone was working remotely.
Okay.
So it allowed for me to continue to work remotely, but just do so from really remotely, if you will. And
Yeah.
I didn't for from what it's worth, like for what it's worth, I didn't know where my team was physically based, right? A lot of them were no longer in the Bay Area. A lot of them, because of the
Mhm.
pandemic, like they'd gone back to their hometowns or where their families were, or their aging parents were. I mean, the pandemic was a scary time for everyone, and you just wanted to be close to your loved ones. So not everyone actually stayed in the Bay Area. And from a company perspective, we didn't know when we were all going to go back into the office, so it didn't make sense for us to restrict anyone's movement in that way. But I think what was fascinating is we just realized that work still happened, work still got done. We were all still productive. In fact, more so, right? We
Mhm.
were all working longer hours, but more productive hours. Like stuff was happening. We were getting things done. We were shipping product. It was actually a great period, professionally speaking. So I had no issues whatsoever with my team, nor with myself being able to actually travel and work remotely. Like, so long as the work gets done, I really didn't care where anybody was based. And the same logic would apply to me that nobody really asked me. I mean, they'd ask me like, oh, where are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm in Montenegro. Oh, that's awesome. Like, where's Montenegro? The work was getting done. And so we very quickly evolved into this fully remote culture and never looked back.
So you're working and traveling. How do you manage your work-life balance, right? You're in a cool place, you wanna explore, but you also have meetings and long to-do list, I imagine, most days. So what are some of the things that you do to help keep you both A, productive, and B, not so much inside and so involved in your work that you're not able to see the place that you're in?
It's the hardest thing. Work life balance is just an elusive concept in general. Now, for me, there's been a few things that have definitely worked. One is I need routine. I need to make
Mm.
sure that I'm waking up at the same time every day. I need to know what I'm doing in the mornings. Am I working out? And then am I having breakfast? Am I showering? And then am I getting started in my work? Am I just, if every day is a toss up, it's hard to mentally prepare for that. And again, that's actually not that different from my pre nomad life. I need routine at all times. It's just a way to get the best out of me and become my most productive self. So, routine is really, really important. I think when it comes to traveling, what's hard about routine is that there's a lot of variables, right? You don't know, are you going to be in the same place? Do you have a set workspace all the time? Or are you going to co working spaces and cafes every day? Are you socializing with people? So, from that respect, you have to intentionally set routine, right? So, it's like, no, I'm going to.
Thanks for tuning in. If you found this episode useful, please like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. You can hear all the full episodes of Digital Nomad Nation wherever you listen to podcasts. Drop your key takeaway in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, you're only one bold decision away from a life full of freedom.